First off, a little about the agenda today. I will start out with who the Danish Business Authority is. Then I will dive a bit into the various entry points in the Danish GAAP taxonomy, and a little about how we use our non-financial data, especially here on the statements on the underrepresented gender in Danish sports. I will get into some appendix information because we have made quite a lot of changes to the digital bookkeeping. And lastly, I will get into some more technical details. But more on that later. So the Danish Business Authority is a rather large agency. It's the largest agency in the ministry. We are around 1,200 employees, and we are located in 3 different areas in Denmark. So we are in Copenhagen and Nykøbing Falster. That's the most southern dot, and then Silkeborg. Because we are so many and the agency are so large, we have very different expertise range. So we have all from working with rural development to digitization to effective supervision and control within funds, anti-money laundering, accounts, auditors, and EU controlling. I will just skip a little. So as you can see, we are one department with 7 agencies and 6 institutions within. So if you see here at this slide, you can see how we are in contact with our business community. So we receive around 300,000 annual reports a year in XBRL, of course, and the Virk.dk, that's our business portal. So we have a lot of interaction at the business portal where the companies log on and to see how their business is going, and all the data can be extracted there as well. So the digital journey, just a little short about where we started. We started in 2012. Where we mandated the XBRL reporting. So for all companies, they have to report in XBRL and PDF. Then we made some automated validation in 2016. So at the moment, we have around 200 automated validations. But the most important thing is what are we working on at the moment? This is a slide on how our entry points in the Danish GAAP taxonomies are made. We have 6 different entry points. So the first 4 in the bracket, that's the core reporting of the Danish companies. So if you are a small company in Denmark, you choose one of the 4. The 5th entry point is a little bit more interesting. This is an entry point relates to the Danish companies who file according to the ESEF taxonomy. So we have made this entry point because we, beside all the financial information in the ESEF taxonomy, we are also very interested in the non-financial information. So before CSRD, we have actually had a lot of non-financial information being reported in this entry point. So if you are a listed company in Denmark, you have to report using 2 taxonomies. So you have the ESEF taxonomy and the Danish GAAP taxonomy using this entry point. And when we make the annual reports public, you can see we have the annual report in the inlineXBRL document, but we also extract 2 XBRL documents one with all the data coming from the ESEF taxonomy and one with the Danish GAAP information. So what information is within this Danish entry point? So as you can see here, this is all the information that we receive, the data points on the screen. Since 2012, we have had many of these text-based reporting tagged in XBRL. And through the years, more statements have come along and been added. And this non-financial information have given the Danish Business Authority and the users of this information a great insight into the various policies of the companies. Not to mention, you can say, the easiness of extracting which companies to take to further check, perhaps if the auditor have written something that we as a regulator should be aware of. So that's very easy to extract. So we are all waiting impatiently on the CSRD taxonomy, as probably the whole room today. And when this taxonomy arrives, we will take out the statement on the CSR, which was a Danish thing at the moment, but we will delete that and make some changes in our filing system so that in the future, when the CSRD is effective, the listed companies will have to report to 3 taxonomies. So both the ESEF, the Danish GAAP, because we still want all the other information, and then the CSRD taxonomy. If you're a non-listed company, you will also be a change for you, because then you have to use one of the 4 entry points in the bracket earlier, but also combined with the CSRD taxonomy. So there will be a change. But at the moment, we don't see it as a big change, because the companies in Denmark are used to the multiple taxonomy filing. So that will be quite interesting to see how this goes. But I think it will be an easy transition for them. Did you have a question? I'm actually quite, that's one of the things I'm waiting to see, because if it's bound into the ESEF, then they don't have to make more changes. But we will also have some companies that are not listed that will also have to report on CSRD. So we have to make some change in that transition. If we dive into one of those non-financial statements that we receive in Denmark, it's one of the statements on the underrepresented gender in Danish boards. So this is an example I've brought along to show some of the benefits of this non-financial information. In Denmark, like other countries, this is a hot topic on the political scene. Some years ago, an evaluation showed that the regulation at the time didn't push hard enough for having more women in the Danish boards and in the company's management. So in 2022, there was a change in the regulation. Companies were met with a requirement to establish target figures. So the Danish government didn't say that they had to be 50%, but they said that the companies had to make these target figures. So it would be more clear which companies have an ambition to move forward in this area. So in the spring of 2024, the companies will start reporting on this subject, so the target figures. And at the moment, we are working on making an easier access to the information. So we are building a web page where users and investors can go and see how are the different Danish companies' ambitions on this subject, who are performing well and who have a nice ambition. So all the information will be displayed who work towards equal gender distribution. On this slide, I wrote incentive, but you can also call it like an exposure of the company. So that's one of the ways the Danish government works when they're trying to get something achieved without making it a hard regulatory demand. We also have a sixth entry point, and that's what we call the appendix to the annual report. So we have in Denmark, we have made this entry point for all the information which is reported as an appendix to the annual report. So a Danish company will file the annual report plus one more XBRL document with this appendix information. And the appendix information is not published. So it's just something for the authorities alone. And what information is in that entry point? We introduced this appendix entry point in 2021, where only information on revenue was added. So it was actually a very, very little taxonomy entry point. So it only had revenue alongside some metadata. And this was actually because in Denmark, some of the smaller companies, they don't have to disclose the revenue in the annual report. But it's a very, for the regulatory authorities, it's a very valued information. So we got it in on this appendix instead. Now we have also added information on the company's digital bookkeeping system. And why is that interesting? That's because we have made we have made some new regulations, a lot of changes actually concerning the bookkeeping in Denmark, where the companies prior were allowed to just do their bookkeeping in a spreadsheet, for example, or whatever they chose, as long as they did some bookkeeping. They now have to use a digital bookkeeping system where the data are stored digitally. So the changes in this regulation are made to increase the degree of digitization in companies and thereby create administrative savings as well. And actually, there's a lot of administrative savings. We made an evaluation some time ago that stated that Danish companies in the long run would save up to 400 million euros per year. And this is, of course, the whole picture. So it's also related to more automated reporting and e-invoicing, for example. So there's a lot of potential going forward in this direction. So the new regulation is divided into three main requirements. We have bookkeeping and storage. The system must support continuously registration of the company's transactions with an appendix to every registration. And with IT security and backup, the system must have appropriate IT security measures, for example, user and access control and automated backups. And for the last, automation of processes, the system must be able to support e-invoicing and must also support a standard chart of accounts. Okay, perhaps I was a little too fast there. So the Danish companies will have to, so you have these demands for all the bookkeeping systems that they have to live up to, but the Danish companies then have to go and select one of these registered bookkeeping systems that will be registered at the Danish Business Authority. We will make a list by 1st of January, and they can go in, choose between the registered bookkeeping systems, and then later on, when they file the annual report, they have to tell us what bookkeeping system they're using. And this way we will get more incentive to see where to put in our controls, etc., and also push forward for a more digitized companies in Denmark. So lastly, I have taken a little more technical insights, so it will be a bit mixed with this information, but we have just mandated inlineXBRL in Denmark. This have been an ambition for us for many years. I have actually thought it would have come a bit sooner, but we weren't there yet, apparently. But now it's mandated. So, for the balance sheet date, 1st of 1st, 2025, we will start seeing these inlineXBRL reports. We have chosen this date so we could have a more easy phase-in instead of having the balance sheet date of end of year instead. So we are quite excited for that development. With the inlineXBRL, you all know we can finally get rid of the XBRL PDF and all the disadvantages that also gives. So we will just have one report. We also have an ambition to publish an inline viewer on our website, our company portal. We are searching for one at the moment because it's not so easy finding one that can display this Danish view with the multiple taxonomy versions. So we are searching a bit in that area. But hopefully we will find one, because then we can get all the structured data correctly out to the public as we wish. On a more technical side, we have also introduced formulas in the Danish GAAP taxonomy. We are converting our existing validations. We have around, as I mentioned earlier, 200 validations. And where it's possible, we will convert those to formulas. It is more transparent, and the validation can be moved to an earlier stage in the process, and that will give us better data quality in the long run. So that is a way we're working on now. Then I have brought this mouse-only solution. And what are we thinking when we're saying this? And this actually just means that we in Denmark are very keen on having all data in the XBRL document. So we would like to have all metadata in the XBRL document so that when the companies file the reports, they don't have to tap in extra information on the side. So just one document, and then they are good to go. And 2 seconds later, the report will be published at our webpage. So this is just a small fraction of what metadata we have in the Danish taxonomy. And so this is also, what can you say, a way forward for, we are hoping that also ESIF and CSRD, and that will also think about embedding as much metadata as possible in the taxonomies. Then lastly, I have brought this also a bit interesting. The self-government of Greenland has decided to repatriate the following areas of the company area, the accounting area, and the auditor area. This is quite interesting because, as many of you know, not so many people live in Greenland. There are about 55,000 people, and they have around 1,000 companies in Greenland. And for many years, Denmark has been the regulatory authority. We have, of course, they have had their own say in what they should implement, but they have been using our company register and all our filing systems and so on. So it will be interesting to see what way they will choose. We will next year work on making a report to help them in choosing which way to go forward. So we will present them for different models, but perhaps they will have to make an XBRL solution on their own. So this will be quite interesting. On the second dot, I will just say that all our annual reports in Denmark are public and they are free of charge. So it's very easy to gain access to all our information. And lastly, all reports in Denmark are filed with a digital signature. So at the moment, we are working on moving from a level up, as you can say, in security. So we go from OSIS 2 to OSIS 3 instead. So that was a little about the insights in Denmark. So yes, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Small information. Question, comment?
Hello, Lise. Hi.
Hi,
My name is Esko Penttinen. I'm the chairman of XBRL Finland. So thank you for this presentation. Just amazing. You continue to blow our minds on how progressed you are in Denmark. Somebody really needs to study the secret sauce that you have and give us the recipe. So these digital reporting systems that you mentioned, so will there be a list of these kind of accepted systems that the Danish companies can use? And how do you come up with that? Is there a review process for the systems, and how does that happen? And how have the system providers kind of perceived this review process?
Well, so we have had a change in the regulation. So we have had many discussions back and forth on what kind of demands should we put for these digital bookkeeping systems. And when we decided on that, we changed the regulation and told the market and had many, many meetings with the systems and the community. And then they have had, I think, about a year making the changes that they need to make in their systems. And they have to file a form to say they can be registered as one of these digital bookkeeping systems. So they have until 31st of October to do so. And then we have a period of 2 months to look through their applications and check if they perceive or they live up to the demands that we have made. And they have to provide the documentation and all that. And then we will go through all of the applications in 2 months. And then per 1st of January 2024, we will make that list public. So if you want to be on the list by 1st of January, you have to have made the application before end of October. And if you apply later, you can of course come on the list later. But if you want to be on the list on 1st of January, you have to apply before. You have to be on the list, otherwise you're out of business, and you can't sell your product to the Danish companies if you're not on the list. So at first we thought, okay, how many digital bookkeeping systems are there in Denmark? Okay, we could count, so 25. So we thought, okay, that's feasible. We can manage that on 2 months. But when the process began, we could see, okay, they can combine the systems in so many different ways. So now we don't actually know how many applications we will receive. We are thinking 300 perhaps, and we have hired extra help so we can get through the applications in those 2 months. So it is quite interesting the next couple of months how this will work. So there's a slight difference. You can have a standard bookkeeping system, so that's all the standard bookkeeping systems, but you can also, as a company, choose a special designed system. So they will not have to be on a list. So I believe major companies like Novo Nordisk, they probably have a special designed bookkeeping system that works for all their many processes. But small companies, they will most likely just buy a bookkeeping system, and then they have to be on that list.
I found it very interesting how you said that you were basically forcing the companies to report in iXBRL. I see a lot of benefits with iXBRL. You mentioned clearly PDF is clearly disadvantageous. I was just wondering, how did you approach this? Because I know, for example, that even at the ESA level, ESA level, they still would like to go ahead with PDFs with new mandates. And every time I mention why not iXBRL, I always hear the opposition like, well, it's too difficult. We don't want to burden the smaller companies, stuff like that. Just maybe you have some tips, and I guess the Finnish secret here. The Danish secret.
Well, I actually totally understand, and I'm not sure we would have gone that way if it wasn't for ESIF as well. So ESIF surely helped us, and we are very happy that it was that direction that ESIF went. But actually, when we did when we went to digital reporting for many years ago, we actually built our own system for smaller companies, so they could just tap in their information. So around 20% use that filing solution, and that we built on inlineXBRL from that for 12 years ago. So we actually have all the small companies are taken care of in that solution, and then we have the listed companies, they have to do it according to ESIF. Then we have the middle group, and the middle group, we have had many sessions with the software providers in Denmark, saying, okay, how long are you? How much development do you need to be ready for inlineXBRL? So we have had many talks with them the last 5 years or so, and many are starting to make the change themselves. So we have a big audit firm choosing to go that way themselves. And now we thought, okay, if we see that development, we will take the chance and make the last mile mandatory. But I'm sure it will give us some headaches before the parting date. So yeah.
Thank you. Philip Allen. Just this, I'm interested in the point that mandating iXBRL is a problem for smaller companies. And this is it's an interesting idea. When online filing started 20, 25 years ago, it was very much felt that this was easier it was best to start with large companies who could afford the infrastructure development and so on, and lead on to small firms and so on later on in the process. This week, we're expecting to pass the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Bill in the UK, which will update the Companies Act. And as soon as that's gone to royal assent in the next month, that will lead to a firm mandate for all companies in the UK to file to Companies House digitally. But the interesting thing is Companies House have decided, as I understand it, though this isn't firm yet, but this is the way they're expected to go, that they will mandate for small companies first, and the year after or so bring in larger companies, because they realize that for small companies, they don't do tagging. Small companies just use an accounting package or a preparation package, press the button, it all comes out the far end. They don't give a damn what it is. And doing iXBRL for them is very, very simple. The ones who have the difficulties, ironically, are the ones advised by the Big Four and who are going through much more complex accounts and much more complex processes.
Yes, I totally agree. And when we started the transition for 12 years ago, we also started with the smaller companies the first year, and then we went up to the bigger companies. And the discussion back then was also, but the bigger companies, they have the resources. But our incentive was, yes, but the smaller companies are so much less complex. So it's much easier for them to do it digitally than the bigger companies.